Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm discussing a very important topic, that is the MVC and MVT architecture. So here Django's MVT architecture is a design pattern that separates the concerns of data handling, user interface and user interaction in web applications. So here Django follows a slight variation of the well-known MVC architecture. So the difference being Django uses the term view for controller. So you can see here in MVT we have model, view and template. And in MVC model, already I have discussed in my first video, this MVC model, we have model, controller and view. So here this view only is called as template in MVT architecture. So here this MVT Django, we can see here you have a user. If we architectural diagram, if you see, you have a user, browser, and with the help of browser the user is sending some HTTP request. So here view acts as an intermediary between the browser and the model to fetch the data from the model to add or update or delete or modify according to the template, whatever the templates, according to the dynamic templates. So the data will be updated in this model and fetched, and that data in turn is sent. This is the we call it as the basic presentation layer. How actually the data is presented, that will be submitted with this business logic. So that is through the view to the user with the help of browser, we say. So here HTTP response, that is, it is fetching the data in the form of a template, in the form of a forms in the model, and that will be given to the user who requested for that particular page of information or the request what they have made. So this is the architectural diagram, and again it's an important question. You will get for 10 marks this question. And here model, the model here stands M stands for model, the data access layer. This layer contains anything and everything about the data, how to access it, how to validate it, which behaviors it has, and the relationships between the data. Okay, so here models are nothing but they are Python classes that map to the database table. These models map to the database tables with the help of Python language. Okay, and view, the view handles the business logic. It handles the business logic and processes user requests. It retrieves data from the model. Okay, it retrieves data from the model and sends it to the template for rendering. In Django, views are Python functions. So we call them, these are nothing but Python functions or classes that receive HTTP requests, interact with the models, and return the HTTP response to the user with the help of browser. And coming for the last, that is the template. So here template, that is the presentation layer. This contains presentation related decisions, how something should be displayed on a web page or other type of content. So here it's responsible, it defines how the data should be displayed to the user. Templates use Django's templating language to dynamically generate HTML content based on the data provided by the view. Okay guys, so this separation ensures we have three layers separated. So this ensures that each part of the application has a distinct responsibility, making the code base more manageable and maintainable. So hope you have understood this. And coming for interacting with the database models, again a very important question. So in MVT architecture, we know that M stands for model, that is the data access layer. This layer contains anything and everything about the data and how to access it and how to validate it, which behaviors it has, and the relationships between the data. Coming for configuring the database, in Django prior to version 1.2, settings.py has the following database configuration. That is database engine, name, user, password, host and port. So here database engine tells Django which database engine to use, and the database name tells Django the name of your database. Database user tells Django which username to use when connecting to the database, and database password tells Django which password to use when connecting to the database, and database host tells Django which host to use when connecting to the database, and database port tells the Django which port to use when connecting to the database. So these are the things we have to take care whenever we are connecting to the database. So in Django 1.2 plus settings.py has the following database configuration. So you can see this. So whichever database backend we use, we will need to download and install the appropriate database adapter. SQLite is the default database used in the Django. SQLite. Okay. Hence, no need to download adapter to SQLite. By default, it is present. So coming for a Django model, Django model is a description of the data in the database represented by Python code. Okay, it contains data layout, the equivalent of SQL create table statements. So how we are going to create SQL statements? That same thing is maintained here in the Django model. And Django uses model to execute the SQL code behind the scenes and return convenient Python data structures representing the rows in the database tables. So in order to provide convenient data access APIs, Django needs to know the database layout somehow, and there are two ways of accomplishing this. Coming for the first way, how data is to, the first way is to explicitly describe the data in Python, and the second way is to introspect the database at runtime to determine the data models. So we see that the second way seems cleaner because the metadata about your tables lives in only one place, but it is introducing some problems. So that is, introspecting a database and runtime obviously requires overhead. If the framework had to introspect the database each time it processed a request or even when the web server was initialized, this would incur an unacceptable level of overhead. So some databases, notably older versions of MySQL, do not support metadata for accurate and complete introspection. So we say that the second way has some of the drawbacks. And the first one has some of the advantages, that is explicitly describing the data in Python. So if you use Python to describe the data, keeping the data layout in Python limits the number of times to do a context switch, and having data models stored as code rather than in database makes it easier to keep models under version control. And SQL is inconsistent across database platforms. If you are distributing a web application, for example, it's much more pragmatic to distribute a Python module that describes your data layout than separate sets of create table statements for MySQL, PostgreSQL, and SQLite. So a drawback of the first way is that it's possible for the Python code to get out of sync with what's actually in the database. If changes are done to a Django model, need to make the same changes inside the database to keep your database consistent with the model. So this is only the drawback. So hope you have understood, and you can expect a 10 marks question here. That is how to interact with the database models. So if that is the case, you have to explain the configuring of data and also the two different ways to access the data in the database, the first way and the second way, how actually the data is stored, how it can be retrieved, and what are the drawbacks in the of using Python in the database in the model. So what is the advantage of using it and what is the disadvantage? So both the ways you have to explain. Hope you have understood. If you find it is useful, please comment useful in the comment box. And in the next video, I'm going to explain the first model example, how to connect the database using the Django. Thank you all.